If I had known one phone call would turn my whole summer into a secret, I would have let it go to voicemail. I would have put the phone face down on the table and walked away. But that is not who I am. I pick up. I show up. I fix what is broken. I just never thought the first thing to crack would be me. My name is Evan Miller. I am 27, and I live in a small town off Lake Erie in Ohio. The air smells like pine and water. People still wave when they pass you on the street. I work as a freelance carpenter. I rebuild decks, patch roofs, and make old houses feel steady again. My dad taught me everything before he died 5 years ago. He was the best handyman in the county. When he passed, he left me his tools and a simple way to live. Keep your head down. Do good work. Stay out of trouble. I liked that. Wood, nails, a steady paycheck, and a quiet night with a beer by the lake. That was my plan. Then, early in June, my phone rang. I almost ignored it. It was a number I did not know. At the last second, I swiped to answer. Hello? Evan, you still fixing houses? Quote. The voice was warm but careful. It touched something old in my memory. It took me a couple of seconds, then it clicked. Maryanne, I said. There was a small pause, like she wondered if I would remember. Yeah, she said. I could hear a smile in the way she breathed. Josh gave me your number. Josh Keller, my best friend, growing up. We spent summers fishing off the pier, cutting through backyards, sneaking cheap beer behind his dad's shed. He moved to New York 5 years ago for a finance job. I stayed here, doing the work my hands knew. Maryanne was his older sister. When we were kids, she rolled her eyes at us all the time. She had a sharp tongue, dark hair, and an attitude like she always had better plans than ours. The roof's leaking, she said now, and the deck is a mess. If you're free this summer, I could use you. Work was work. My last few months had been quiet, too quiet. I did not think about it twice. I'm in, I said. I'll swing by tomorrow. The next morning, I loaded my dad's tools into my truck. Saws, hammers, a ladder, boxes of screws, enough to go to war with rotten wood. The drive took 20 minutes, but it felt longer. I kept telling myself it was just a job, just my best friend's sister, just a lake house that needed help. Then I turned down the gravel path and saw the house. It sat on a quiet stretch of shoreline, wrapped in tall pines that moved in the wind. The cedar siding was weathered but strong. The deck faced the water, wide and worn. The roof looked tired. The deck looked worse. Rotted boards, loose rails. The kind of thing that sends people to the hospital if you are not careful. Maryanne stood on the porch, waiting. She wore jeans and a loose white shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, like she had tried a little but not too much. She was not the same girl I remembered. She looked calmer, more settled, but there was something in her eyes, something deep, like a story that had not been told yet. Evan Miller, she said, folding her arms. All grown up. I climbed out of the truck and picked up my toolbox. My chest was tight, but I tried to sound normal. Maryanne Keller, I said. Still bossing people around? She laughed softly. It surprised me. It was warm, not sharp. Josh is in New York, she said. So I have to settle for bossing contractors now. We walked around the property while she showed me the damage, water spots on the ceiling, warped boards, windows that would not seal. I nodded and took notes. In my head, I could already see the work. It was a big job. 2 months if I work steady, I told her. Good, she said. I hate this roof when it rains. By noon, I was tearing out rotten deck planks. The lake was calm, shining under the sun. Sawdust stuck to my arms. Sweat ran down my back. When I work, the world usually fades. It is just me in the wood. Then the green door behind me opened. I glanced back. Maryanne stepped out with a glass of iced tea. She set it on the rail without a word. When I looked up to thank her, I caught her staring at me. Not a quick look, a quiet, steady one. Like she was trying to see who I had become. Thanks, I said, trying to keep my voice flat. She nodded and turned like she was going back inside. She paused for a second, as if she wanted to say something else. Then she walked away. The rest of that first week fell into a rhythm. I showed up at 8 every morning. I worked on the deck, then moved to the roof. Maryanne drifted in and out. She pulled weeds in the garden, read on the porch, cooked things that made the air smell like herbs and butter. We talked a little. Weather, town news. Josh in New York. Always safe topics. Always space between us. By Friday, that space did not feel the same. It felt thinner. She stayed longer when she brought water. She stood closer when she checked my progress. Her eyes followed my hands when I worked, as if she was trying to understand how I fit into this house. One afternoon, I was sanding a new plank on the deck. The lake behind us was flat and bright. Sanding is slow work. It gives your mind time to wander. "You're good at this," she said, leaning against a post. "It's what I do," I answered. Her voice softened. "Your dad would have been proud." The sander grew quiet in my hands. People did not bring up my dad much anymore. It felt like touching something delicate. I swallowed and looked up at her. Her hazel eyes held mine. The light caught gold specks in them. She did not look away. For a second, it felt like the whole house went still. Something inside me shifted, like a nail coming loose. I broke the eye contact first and bent over the wood again. It was easier to look at the plank than at her. That night, driving home, I told myself it was nothing, just a job, just my best friend's sister, just a look that lasted too long. But I knew I was lying. I could still feel the way she had said proud, like it meant something. By the second week, I started showing up earlier than I had to. I told myself it was because the roof was in worse shape than I thought. I said it was smart to get ahead of schedule. The truth was quieter. I liked being there in the early morning. The house still, the lake breathing slow, the pines creaking, knowing she was inside, moving through her routine, making coffee, opening curtains. It should have felt normal. It did not. It felt dangerous. Every time my truck tires rolled over that gravel path, I thought of Josh, his loud laugh, the way he used to call me brother, the trust in his voice anytime he asked me for help. Then I thought of Maryanne's eyes on mine. My chest felt like it was being pulled in two directions. On Tuesday, she brought lunch, not just water. A thick turkey sandwich with avocado wrapped in foil, and a small bag of chips. "You didn't have to do this," I said. She shrugged like it meant nothing, but her cheeks turned a little pink. "You work like you forget you are human," she said. "Eat." I sat on the steps and ate while she leaned on the post and watched the water. The silence was not empty. It was full of things we were not saying. "How's Josh?" I asked, because I needed something safe. "Busy," she said. "New York suits him. He likes the noise." "And you?" I asked before I could stop myself. "You like it quiet out here?" She looked at me. Not sharp, not annoyed, just honest. "Sometimes," she said. "Sometimes it is too quiet." There was something lonely under her calm voice. I felt the same urge I get when I see a loose board or a cracked step. Fix it. Make it safe. But people are not decks. You cannot fix them with nails and wood glue. "It will not always feel like that," I said. She studied my face like she was trying to decide if she believed me. "You say that like you are sure," she said. I was not sure of anything. Not lately. The next day the weather turned. The morning started clear. I climbed up on the roof to pull old shingles and check the beams. Up close, the damage was worse than it looked from the ground. Water had crept farther in. I would need more supplies. I was fighting a stubborn strip of shingles when the air changed. The breeze went heavy. The light dimmed. Dark clouds rolled in over the lake. I should have climbed down. Pride kept me up there. The first drops hit hard. Then the sky opened. Rain hammered the roof. In seconds, I was soaked. The shingles turned slick under my boots. I grabbed my tools, trying to pull them back from the edge. My foot slipped. 1 second, I was crouched near the peak. The next second, I was sliding. My stomach dropped. My hands grabbed for anything. For a heartbeat, I caught the edge. Then my fingers lost their hold. I fell. The sky flipped. Rain hit my face. The ground rushed up fast. I hit the muddy grass on my back. The air punched out of my lungs. For a moment, all I heard was rain and my own rough breathing. Evan. Her voice cut through the storm. Maryanne ran from the porch barefoot, her dress soaked, hair stuck to her cheeks. She dropped to her knees beside me, hands hovering over me like she wanted to touch me and was scared to. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaking. Pain shot through my ribs, but nothing felt broken. I pushed myself up on one elbow and tried to breathe. "I'm fine," I said, even though it hurt. She stared at me for a second, then let out a sharp laugh. A real laugh, bright and unguarded. "You are impossible," she said, and finally her hand landed on my arm. That simple touch sent a shock through me that had nothing to do with the fall. Inside, the house was warm and smelled like lemon and herbs. She shoved a towel into my hands and pointed to a chair at the small kitchen table. "Sit," she said. "Yes, ma'am," I answered without thinking. She gave me a look that was half annoyed, half something else. Something softer. Rain pounded on the roof while steam rose from the mug of tea she put in front of me. When our fingers brushed, a small spark jumped between us. "You did not have to come out there," I said. "Maybe I did not want you out there alone," she said. The words hung in the air. "You are going to make me think you care," I tried to joke. Her eyes met mine, steady and clear. "I do care, Evan," she said. My heart thumped hard against my bruised ribs. I looked down at the table, because if I kept looking at her, I knew something in me would move in a way I could not take back. "You should not," I said quietly. "You are not as tough as you pretend," she answered. "I know. I have been watching you." When the rain slowed, I stood to leave. My clothes were still damp. My hands were still shaking, and it was not just from the fall. She walked me to the door. "Be careful," she said. I nodded and stepped back out onto the deck I was fixing, into a world that felt just a little different now. After that storm, nothing really went back to normal. On the surface, it might have looked the same. Just a carpenter and a client. Just a house by the lake. But we both knew better. And deep down, I already knew one thing for sure. If I kept coming back to this house, I would not be able to keep pretending. After the storm, nothing went back to normal. It only looked normal if you did not look too close. Maryanne stopped acting like the house was just a job site. I stopped pretending I was only there for the work. The deck felt less like a project and more like a place we shared. The kitchen felt like a room where two people could sit too long without a reason. July settled in over the lake. Long, hot days, slow, warm nights. The house started to look better than it had in years. The closer I got to finishing, the more restless I felt. By the second week after the storm, I was pulling into her driveway earlier and earlier. I kept telling myself it was because the roof needed more work, because summer jobs could dry up fast, because I was being smart. The truth was simple. I liked being there before she stepped outside. I liked hearing the quiet sounds of her morning, a cupboard closing, the kettle whistling, a door opening. Knowing she was inside that house, moving through her life while I carried my tools up the steps. That should have felt normal. It did not. It felt like standing on the edge of something high, looking down, telling yourself you were only there for the view. The deck came first. I tore out the last of the rotten boards. Replaced beams. Laid fresh planks, tightened rails until they stopped complaining when you leaned on them. My hands did what they always did. My mind was the problem. It kept drifting to small things. The way Maryanne's hair slipped loose from her bun when she forgot to fix it. The way she leaned over the railing to watch the gulls, not noticing I was staring. The way she said my name. Soft, like it meant something more than just a visit. One Tuesday, she walked out with more than water. She carried a plate and a small bag of chips. "I brought lunch," she said. "I set my drill down. You did not have to do that." She shrugged like it was nothing, but that faint pink rose in her cheeks again. "You work like you forget you're human," she said. "Sit. Eat." There was no point fighting her. I sat on the steps with the plate in my lap. She leaned on a post, arms crossed, watching the lake. The sandwich was thick with turkey and avocado. It tasted better than anything I had made for myself in months. "How's Josh?" I asked, because I needed a safe topic. "Busy," she said. "New York suits him. He likes the noise. He likes being important." "And you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "You like it quiet out here?" She looked at me over her shoulder, not annoyed, not amused, just honest. "Sometimes," she said. "Sometimes it is too quiet." Something tight pulled in my chest. There was a lonely note under her calm words, and I heard it clear. I felt that pull to fix it, the same rush I get when I see a cracked step. "It will not always feel like that," I said. She studied my face for a second, like she was weighing my words. "You say that like you're sure," she said. I was not sure of anything. Not about her, not about me, not about any of it. A few days later, the sun dropped slow and orange over the water while I finished screwing in a new rail. My shirt stuck to my back. Sawdust clung to my neck. Maryanne stepped out with 2 cold bottles of water and held one out. "You done for today?" she asked. "Almost," I said. "Just checking the last bolts." "You check things twice," she said. "Your deck was one bad step away from the emergency room," I told her. "I am not doing this halfway." She smiled a little at that. "You always like this?" Quote. "What? Careful?" I asked. "No," she said. "Carrying more than you say." Her words hit harder than I expected. The air around us felt thicker. That night, as I was packing up my tools, she stood in the doorway. "Stay for dinner," she said. I should have said no. I should have made an excuse, something about a quote I had to finish or another job in the morning. "Yeah," I said. "Okay." Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, bread warmed in the oven. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the lamp above us casting soft light over everything. The house felt smaller. Or maybe we just felt closer. She asked about my dad, not in a casual way, not the quick, "sorry about your loss" people say and move on. She asked how he taught me, what kind of man he was, what he used to say when a job got hard. I told her how he taught me to listen to wood, how he could tap a beam and just know if it would hold, how he never rushed, even when money was tight, how he believed if you fixed things right the first time, you would sleep better at night. When I finished, my throat felt tight. "He would have been proud of you," she said. The words hit so hard I had to look down at my plate. My foot shifted under the table. Her foot brushed mine. Light, careful, like a question. I froze. She did not pull away. Neither did I. We stayed like that, feet touching, while we ate in a quiet that did not feel empty at all. After dinner, she grabbed 2 glasses of wine and we walked out to the deck. The night was warm and the lake was dark except for a thin line of moonlight on the surface. Crickets sang in the trees. Far off, a boat engine hummed, then faded away. We leaned on the new railing I had just finished, my handiwork holding us up while we stood too close. "After my divorce," she said, staring out at the water, "I forgot how to let people close." I turned my head. "I did not know you were married." "Yeah," she said. "Short story, wrong man, wrong promises." It was easier to be alone than to be disappointed again. I looked at her profile, the calm way she held herself, the tension in her jaw. "I get that," I said quietly. "Do you?" she asked. "After my dad died, I built everything around work," I said. "Jobs, tools, lists. It was easier than wanting things. Wanting things just felt like giving them a chance to hurt you." She turned her face toward me. Her eyes were soft and searching in the low light. "And what do you want now?" she asked. I could have lied. I could have said something about business, about a better truck, about a bigger shop. "I do not know," I said. "I am still figuring it out." She held my gaze for a second longer and then nodded, like she respected that answer more than a clean one. She went inside and came back with a blanket, and we sat on the steps with our shoulders almost touching, drinking wine while the night settled around us. The next afternoon, I was drilling in a post when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I wiped my hands and pulled it out. Josh flashed on the screen. My stomach dropped. "How's the lake house coming?" his text read. "Maryanne says you're killing it." I stared at the message too long. My chest tightened. She had talked to him. Used my name like it was casual. No, wait. Maryanne stepped outside with a glass of water and stopped when she saw my face. "That Josh?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She studied me for a second. "What did he say?" Quote, "Says you told him I am doing a good job," I answered. "He is coming home next week." There was a tiny shift in her expression. Not shock, not surprise. Just a mix of worry and something like acceptance. "Then you should go," she said quietly. The word hit me harder than I expected. "Go," I repeated. "Before he gets here," she said, "before this gets harder." "I do not want to pretend none of this happened," I said. Her fingers tightened around the glass. "Neither do I," she said. "But real things have consequences, Evan." That night, a storm rolled in again, but this time it was not rain. Clouds passed over the moon. The wind picked up. The lights in the house flickered once, then went out. "Breaker," I said, grabbing a flashlight. I went down to the small panel in the hallway, reset what needed resetting, and the light snapped back on. When I turned around, Maryanne was standing there, her face half in shadow, half in light. Her hair was loose now. Her eyes were steady. "I cannot keep doing this," she said softly, acting like I do not feel it. My chest clenched. "Maryanne!" I started. She took a small step closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper that felt like it went straight under my skin. "Stop pretending," she said. For a second, everything in me went still. All the rules I had learned, all the lines I had drawn, all the promises I thought I had made to myself and to Josh pushed up against the truth I had been avoiding. I cared about her. More than I should. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I did not have to look to know it was Josh. The timing felt cruel, I answered. He talked about work, about coming home, about how he trusted me to keep an eye on his sister. Every word twisted inside me. When the call ended, the silence in the hallway was heavy. "He's coming back," I said. "I know," she said. "We have to be careful," I added. She looked up at me, eyes bright, jaw set. "I do not want careful," she said. "I want honest." I stepped toward her before I could talk myself out of it. My heart hammered in my chest. I kissed her. It started soft. Careful. Then, honest. The kind of kiss that tasted like every moment we had both tried to ignore. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. Her breathing was unsteady. So was mine. "We cannot do this," she whispered. "I know," I said. "You should go home tonight," she added. At my truck, under the thin porch light, she pressed a folded note into my hand. "Read it when you are gone," she said. Her fingers brushed mine for a second longer than they needed to. Then she stepped back. At home, sitting on the edge of my bed, I opened the note. Her handwriting was careful, a little shaky. She wrote that she was scared, that she felt seen, that if I wanted this too, really wanted it, I should come back in October when the leaves started to turn. I folded the note and held it in my hand. That summer job was no longer just a job. It was a promise, and I had no idea how I was going to keep it without breaking something else. Josh came back the following Friday. "In our town, you do not need a text to know something like that. Someone sees a familiar car at the gas station. Someone else spots a tall guy at the diner. Word moves faster than any phone. By the time my screen lit up with his name, my chest was already tight. You around tonight?" He wrote. "Beer at the old spot." The old spot was a bench near the marina where we used to sit as kids and talk like life would do whatever we wanted. I stared at his message longer than I should have. "Yeah," I typed back. "I'll be there." That day at the lake house, Maryanne moved through the rooms like she was trying not to hit any fragile edges. She kept busy. Dishes, laundry, pointless small tasks. When I packed up my tools in the afternoon, she stepped out onto the porch. "He texted you, didn't he?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She nodded once. "Have fun." The words sounded normal. Her eyes did not. That night, the air down by the marina smelled like fuel and fish and old wood. Josh stood by the bench with 2 beers in his hands. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Evan," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Man, it has been too long." He talked fast. He always did. Stories about New York, loud streets, long hours, bosses who thought they were gods. I laughed in the right places. I nodded. My body was there. My mind kept drifting back to the lake house and the woman standing on that porch, telling me to have fun and trying not to let her face show she hated this. "You still fixin' stuff?" Josh asked, tipping his beer toward me. "Yeah," I said. "Same old." "I'm glad you're helping Maryanne," he said. "She needs someone solid around." The word solid felt heavy, like a weight I was not sure I deserved anymore. We stayed until the sky went dark and the water turned black. When I went home, I could not sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to my own pulse, feeling the folded note from Maryanne like a stone in my wallet. The weekend stretched. Josh stayed at a motel, but he was at the lake house most of the day. I found reasons to stay away. Extra supply runs, small side jobs, anything that kept me off that driveway. On Sunday afternoon, I ran out of excuses. Josh texted. "Lunch at the lake. Maryanne's making her pasta. You better show up." I drove there slower than usual. My hands were tight on the wheel. When I stepped onto the porch, Maryanne opened the door. She was smiling, but it never reached her eyes. Josh came up behind her and wrapped her in a hug. I stood there on the threshold like a guest in a place that had started to feel like mine. Lunch was loud. Josh filled the space with words, work stories, old memories. He told the same jokes we had told for years, and I laughed like I had not heard them before. Maryanne moved around the kitchen carrying bowls, pouring drinks, sitting when she had to, standing when she could. I watched her hands, the way she avoided brushing against me, the way she caught herself and forced small smiles when our eyes met. Once, for just a second, she looked up and met my gaze across the table. It felt like a held breath. Then Josh said something and the moment broke. After lunch, Josh went down to the dock to make a call. The screen door creaked shut behind him. For the first time that day, the house got quiet. Maryanne stood at the sink, rinsing plates. Suds clung to her fingers. Her head was bent, but I could see the tightness in her shoulders. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She nodded without looking at me. Always. I wanted to step closer. I wanted to touch her back, her shoulder, anything. I did not move. Josh's footsteps came back up the path faster than I expected. The screen door snapped open, and whatever might have passed between us closed again. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, the note still folded in my wallet. October felt far away. It was the only solid thing I had. The week that followed moved slow and sharp at the same time. Josh had errands, old friends to see, people to catch up with. He asked me to help carry boxes from the shed at the lake house. We worked side by side while Maryanne stayed inside. "You ever think about leaving town?" he asked, lifting one side of a heavy box. "Sometimes," I said. "Yeah," he said. "Me too. But then I come back and remember why I miss it." I almost laughed at that. Almost. I kept working the job. I came to the lake house when I had to, stayed away when I could. When I was there, Maryanne and I barely spoke. We used polite words and careful looks. It hurt worse than if she had just told me to stay away for good. By the time Josh left at the end of the week, I felt hollow. He hugged me in the driveway. He hugged her longer. When his car pulled away and disappeared down the road, the air felt strange. Too still. I turned back to my truck. Maryanne stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. "He's gone," she said. "Yeah," I answered. She walked toward me. For a moment, we just stood there, close but not touching. "I hated this week," she said quietly. "Me too," I said. "I thought distance would help," she went on. It didn't. I reached for her hand. This time, she did not pull away. Our fingers linked together, palm to palm. The lake moved behind us, soft and steady. My heartbeat did not match it. "We cannot do this forever," she said. I know, I said, but we can do it for now. She looked up at me like she was trying to see if that was enough. Then she nodded. That night she asked me to stay. Not for dinner, to stay. We sat on the couch first, talking in low voices, like the walls could listen and judge us. She told me more about her divorce, how it had made her doubt herself, how it was easier to feel nothing than risk feeling too much. I told her about my dad's last months, about watching a strong man fade, about how it made me cling to simple things. Nails, wood, straight lines, jobs I could finish. When she leaned her head on my shoulder, it felt like permission. When I kissed her, it felt less like a mistake and more like something that had been waiting to happen. We did not rush. We crossed that line slowly, step by step, until there was no going back and no pretending we were on the safe side anymore. Later, as she rested with her head on my chest, she traced small shapes on my arm. October, she said softly. October, I repeated. The next weeks blurred. Work during the day. Quiet nights together. We kept it secret. No big scenes. No loud laughs in public. Just stolen hours in a house by the lake, trying to hold back time. We lived in that strange in-between. Not open, not hidden from each other, only hidden from everyone else. Summer does not listen to what you want. The days moved on. The sun felt lower. The air changed. A little cooler in the mornings, a little sharper at night. One morning in late August, Maryanne stood on the porch while I loaded my tools. "You'll finish next week," she said. "Yeah," I said. "That is the plan." She wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold, even though the day was warm. "And then?" she asked. I did not answer, because the truth scared me. If I said I would stay, that meant tearing something open with Josh. If I said I would go, that meant walking away from the one thing that finally felt alive. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, knowing summer was ending and endings collect what they are owed. September came whether I was ready or not. Work picked up around town. Small jobs, fence repairs, leaky sinks. I kept my hands busy. My mind stayed somewhere else. I watched the trees every morning, waiting for the leaves to shift from green to gold. Then, in the middle of a job one afternoon, my phone rang. "Josh, you got a minute?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans even though he could not see me. He sounded different, quieter. "I have been thinking about this summer," he said. "You and Maryanne seemed close." My heart punched against my ribs. I stayed silent. "I am not accusing you," he said. "I just want to know. She has been happier than she has in years." I swallowed. The easy lie sat on my tongue. I could say it was nothing. I could say we were just friends. I could push the truth away one more time. "I care about her," I said instead. He did not answer right away. I heard him breathe out. "I always trusted you," he said. "That is why this scares me." "I never wanted to hurt you," I said. "I know," he replied. There was a pause. The line hummed between us. "That is the problem," he said. When the call ended, I stood there with my phone in my hand, the world suddenly very quiet. The leaves had not even fully turned yet, and already the promise I was holding on to felt like it might tear everything I cared about in two. October came early that year. The air changed first. It felt cleaner, sharper in the morning. Then the leaves around town started to shift. A little yellow at the edges, a touch of red in the trees by the lake. Every time I drove past, my chest tightened. One morning, I stood on my small porch, coffee in hand, and knew it was time. The note in my wallet felt heavier than the keys in my pocket. "Come back when the leaves start turning," she had written. So I did. The drive to the lake house felt different than it had in June. Back then, it was just a job. Now it felt like walking toward the kind of truth that changes your life. Her house came into view between the trees. The deck I had rebuilt looked strong and clean. The roof sat solid under the pale sky. The place looked steady. Maryanne was on the porch, waiting. She wore a sweater and jeans. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. The wind caught a few strands and moved them across her face. She tucked them behind her ear when she saw my truck. "You came," she said, stepping down onto the top stair. "I did," I said. We stood there for a second, just looking at each other. Then she came closer. "I told Josh," she said. My stomach dropped. "Told him what?" "About us," she said. "About this summer. About how I feel." My chest went tight. "And?" "He is angry," she said. "He is hurt. But he said he wants us to be honest, even if it takes him time." I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. "We cannot hide anymore," she said. "I will not live like that." I nodded. "Me neither." She reached for my hand. Her fingers slid between mine like they belonged there. The wind off the lake was cold, but her hand was warm. "This will not be easy," she said. "I know," I answered. For the first time since that phone call in June, we were standing there without pretending. No safe distance, no lies to ourselves, just the truth, messy and real. The truth did not land like a neat story. It did not fix everything in one sweep. It moved in pieces. Josh did not come home again right away. He stayed away longer this time, in New York, trying to make sense of things from a distance. I understood that. I needed time, too. Maryanne and I did not rush. We stopped hiding, but we did not make a show of it either. In a town like ours, you do not have to explain much. People see what they want. They saw my truck parked overnight at her place sometimes. They saw us walking along the shoreline in the evenings, close but not clinging. They saw the way she laughed easier and the way my shoulders seemed lighter, like I had put something heavy down. Some people nodded. Some people stared. A few looked away with tight faces. I learned quick that you cannot control what other people think. You can only decide what you are willing to live with. Josh finally came back in late October. He called first. His voice was flat but steady. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Just us." "Yeah," I said. "Name the place." "The marina," he said. "Same bench." The wind off the water that day was cold. The lake looked darker, like it had pulled the color from the sky. I got there early and sat on the bench, hands wrapped around the edge, waiting. Josh showed up in a dark jacket, hands in his pockets. He sat beside me, leaving a small space between us. Not much, but enough to feel. "I should have told you sooner," I said before he could start. "Yeah," he said, "you should have." I waited for him to yell, to curse, to stand up and walk away. Instead, he let out a long breath that sounded like it had been trapped in his chest for weeks. "I hated finding out slowly," he said, "feeling like the last one to know what is going on in my own sister's life." "I never wanted to make you feel that way," I said. He stared out at the water for a long time. The waves slapped against the dock. A gull yelled overhead. "She has not looked that alive in years," he said finally. My throat tightened. "That does not make it right," I said. "No," he agreed. "It does not. But it makes it real." He turned his head and looked at me for the first time since he sat down. "I am not ready to be okay with it," he said. "Maybe I never will be, but I do not want to lose both of you." It was not a clean blessing. It was not a full forgiveness. But it was something. A space to stand. "Thank you," I said. The words felt small, but they were all I had. We sat there until the wind got too sharp and our hands went numb. When we finally stood up, he clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Do not make me regret this, Evan," he said. "I will not," I answered. Life did not turn perfect after that. Maryanne and I argued sometimes. About the town, about the future, about how much of ourselves we were willing to bend to fit into this place. But the difference was clear. We talked. We did not hide behind silence or polite lies. One night we sat out on the deck wrapped in blankets, watching the dark water move. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "All the time." She smiled a little. "Me too." Winter came. Snow wrapped the lake in quiet. Work slowed. People did not think about decks in the snow. They thought about heat and bills and staying upright on icy driveways. I fixed what I could, small jobs, inside repairs. I waited out the cold one day at a time. Maryanne kept busy in the house. She painted rooms, swapped out old curtains, sanded a small table in the living room until the wood showed its grain again. She was turning the house into something new piece by piece. In the spring, I took a risk. There was a small empty storefront near the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just 4 walls, a big window, and a back room. The rent was not cheap for someone who had always worked out of his truck and garage, but it was fair. I signed the papers. I cleaned the place out, patched the drywall, built myself a long workbench. Maryanne helped me paint the walls a clean, bright white. She brought coffee and a sandwich, just like that first lunch on the deck. She told everyone she knew that I was opening a shop. It felt different from any job I had taken before. This did not feel like fixing something that was already there. It felt like building something that could last. Josh started coming around more. Still careful, still watching, but he showed up. Sometimes he brought coffee. Sometimes he stayed for dinner at the lake house. He and Maryanne argued like siblings do, then laughed like siblings do. That mattered more than anything. One evening, almost a year after that first phone call, Maryanne and I stood on the deck as the sun slid down over the water. The sky was streaked with orange and pink. The lake caught the colors and pulled them across the surface. She slipped her hand into mine. "Do you regret it?" she asked. I thought about the fear, the guilt, the waiting, the nights lying awake, the way my friendship with Josh had been pushed and stretched, the way my quiet life had cracked open. I thought about her standing in the rain, barefoot in the yard, shouting my name, her hand on my arm in the kitchen, the way she said my dad would be proud, the way she whispered, "Stop pretending." "No," I said, "I do not." She watched the water for a second, then turned her face toward me. "Do you?" I asked. She shook her head. "I regret how long I stayed quiet," she said. "But not this, not you." I squeezed her hand. The deck under our feet felt solid. The house behind us stood strong and steady. My dad used to say that fixing things was about more than nails and screws. He never said it in big speeches. He said it in the way he stayed late on a job to make sure a railing would not give when a kid leaned on it. In the way he checked a step twice if he knew an old woman used that porch. Standing there with Maryanne, I finally understood what he meant. Some things break and stay broken. Some things are not worth saving. But some things, the right things, you fight for. You patch the weak spots. You replace what is rotten. You brace what shakes. You stand there while the storm hits and hold on. That summer started with a phone call and a job. It ended with something I never planned for. A love that scared me, stretched me, and forced me to stop pretending I was fine alone. That summer changed everything. And for the first time in a long time, I was glad something had finally cracked. Because when it did, the truth had room to come in.